Okay, great. So just want to welcome everybody out today. My name is Ben Dimmick. Appreciate you guys joining us for our webinar this morning. Wanted to just get things launched off here first, just to give you an idea of what the overall agenda is here. We're looking to cover first off is just want to go over essentially what the goals are for a customer identity. Talk a little bit about Tevora, I suppose, before that, and then get into some of the specifics behind those individual goals: convenience, engagement, security, and so on. We also wanted to dive into some of the specific considerations and challenges that we've seen with some of our clients that have undertaken this approach, so that you can help to avoid those in the future. And then lastly, we wanted to discuss the path for success as we've laid it out. Essentially, these are the approaches that we've come up with that we found have been successful for our clients as they've endeavored to create a full customer identity program. So just to give you a little bit of background on me, my name is Ben Dimmick. I lead up our identity practice over here at Tevora. I lean pretty heavily into a lot of our other implementation practices as well, but overall my primary focus is in our identity space. So I work with a lot of our various partners in the identity space, as well as directly with clients on addressing their needs around identity. And this includes both internal users as well as external users, but today we're focused pretty heavily on the external side. And the whole experience around customers. For anybody that's not too familiar with Tevora, we're a cybersecurity consulting firm. We focus around everything in cybersecurity and providing consulting services for it. We happen to resell a number of different vendors out there in the space, and we've focused pretty heavily on ensuring that we've created a experience for our customers that allows us to work very closely with them and really become their security partners in terms of giving them the leg up that they need. I think we've been around for a number of years. It's been I think Tevora started in 2003, if I recall. So it's been quite a while in terms of a security solution history here. A lot of our approach here, we focus very heavily on becoming experts in our spaces and knowing exactly what we're doing, so that we can provide our customers with the expertise that they've come to expect. And as I mentioned, we've divided ourselves into a couple of different practice areas here. We focus largely into these 6 areas. This is where we break up most of our efforts on our consulting side, whether it's our compliance business, data privacy. I work very heavily in the security solutions section. We also do quite a bit of threat management, penetration testing, red teaming, so on, risk management, incident response. So we really have made it our focus here at Tevora in being the one-stop shop, as you will, for our clients, where we can provide an end-to-end solution for everything that they're looking to accomplish. But to get a little bit more focused and a little bit more centered, we wanted to dive into customer identity today. So we're looking at this from a perspective of what's really the most important thing. So how do we really succeed when it comes to the customer experience and getting it right for customers? So I think the first thing to realize is just to get a feel for what the goals are behind customer identity. For instance, it's really simple and straightforward to say that we want to have a customer identity program, but if we don't know what our overall goals are, then it's hard to know when we've achieved them and when we happen to be falling short. So first thing I wanted to touch on here is that the first goal needs to be convenience. And this has become more crucial now than it ever has been in the past, just because so many things are becoming extremely convenient for customers. For instance, we're starting to find that more and more people are expecting to be able to do everything online with the companies that they do business with. We're finding that more and more people want to have a complete experience, and it's starting to really be manifest in some of the relationships and some of the brand decisions that are being made out there. So as part of it, a lot of companies are starting to really get this right, which puts a lot of pressure on everybody else to also get it right. Frankly speaking, there's just a lot of good yardsticks out there in terms of what a good customer experience should be, even though I'm sure a lot of us could think of several bad examples off the top of our heads. But one recent study that shows how this has kind of become manifest very quickly was that 80% of those surveyed admitted that they had switched in the middle of a transaction and actually switched to a competitor because they felt they were having a poor digital experience. They felt like they were having an issue with the website they were on, the company they were doing business with, and so having essentially the opportunity isn't closed until it's really closed. And if in the middle of a transaction suddenly the digital experience starting to have problems, then other redeeming factors within the business may not help to save that particular customer. So digital experience is becoming a crucial component for every business these days. The customers are also willing to engage more frequently with companies that make it easy. So the goal here is really that customers are starting to expect things like mobile apps to be provided for their access and so on, and they want to make sure that they have these opportunities to engage with folks. Sometimes it's just a matter of finding out more about some of the offerings that are out there, and they're willing to take part. It's always something that's been surprising to me at Tevora. Just the number of our customers that aren't familiar with the full spread of what we offer as a business, and having a good customer experience is an important part of making sure that this is well known to clients. Another important component for the customer experience is that, simply put, we need to make sure that we're getting everything compiled together. Getting everything in such a way so that it makes it simple and easy for users. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's had this experience, but one challenge that I've had in this area has been with my internet service provider. And I won't dive into a lot of details in terms of who I'm with, because that's not really important. But in their case, they happen to have a number of different tools that I can use as part of my service. Whether it's paying my bill, checking my email that they provide, and so on and so forth. One of the challenges behind this, though, is that they haven't really created a very good customer experience for me. It's really difficult for me to go and find all of the tools that I want to use as part of the process, and it's also difficult because in a lot of cases I have to sign into all of them individually. So essentially, I'm left with a bunch of tools, but I don't have any way to get them all grouped together and get them into one cohesive experience. And that's been a pretty crucial thing, is really having that whole centralized experience put into place. We have a couple of partners we've worked with pretty heavily in this direction, and one example that I want to give you is Okta. As a partner of ours that we've worked with pretty heavily in the customer identity space, as well as on the internal user identity space. One of the core values to using Okta is that they allow you to put everything together in one spot. And to give you an idea of what that experience is like, in the case of Okta, when you log in, you're presented with a user interface that looks something like this. Essentially, you log in once, and then you're provided with tiles, and you're allowed to go into the other tools that are in place within the organization for the user. So this allows you to very quickly get access to everything that you need to work with, everything that is part of what you're engaged with. Makes it very simple to find all the tools. For instance, there's probably things that my ISP is offering that I'm not even aware of because I just haven't found the particular tool that we're looking for. So it's pretty important to have a centralized experience and have a simple login experience for users as well. Want them to be able to log in once and then get access to everything that they should have access to at that point. Another crucial thing that we're starting to see as an important factor is getting users quickly and easily signed into the application. And social authentication is becoming a pretty big component here. We're finding that as more and more users are working with more and more companies, they don't necessarily want to maintain a separate account on every single platform that they maintain. They don't necessarily want to have to remember a password for every company that they do business with and so on. So social authentication is starting to make this process very simple. Most people have probably used this already. Essentially, when you go to a website, the website asks you if you want to sign in using Facebook, Twitter, Google, what have you. That's a form of social authentication in this case. The goal here is that instead of having to go through the whole process of creating an account on every site that you happen to be using, instead you can leverage the existing accounts you have in order to validate who you are. So definitely something that's providing a lot of value here. Now, the one thing that I will caution, though, around social authentication is to ensure that the social authentication process is optional. And by that, we mean that we're noticing that a lot of companies are starting to run into a little bit of an issue here where essentially some customers just don't feel as though they necessarily want to trust some of these social platforms anymore, and they don't necessarily want to use them for these purposes. So definitely recommending that as a key component here is to make sure that it's optional. Another thing as well is as we're diving through the whole convenience process is to ensure that we are evaluating convenience versus security. And by that I mean, for instance, we're starting to see more and more platforms, especially for customers and individual users and so on, that are adopting multi-factor authentication and other security protocols to help keep accounts secure. We're starting to find that more and more customers are beginning to expect some of that. But I'll dive into this a little bit later on. But again, one of the most important factors here is just to make sure that we're comparing the convenience for our customers against their security. Part of this process as well, as we're looking at the convenience for it, is that really users need to be able to see the value in what's going on. Looking at has this exchange been worth my customer's time and energy and so on. When a customer chooses to engage with the company, they're ultimately investing some time and hopefully some money into your company, and part of the process behind that is just making sure that that's a positive engagement for them. So definitely been one of the things that we have cautioned a number of our clients about is looking at the real value that they're providing back to their customers. For instance, if the whole goal is just to get people to log in, but people don't really see what is provided to them as part of the process for creating an account and logging in and so on, then they may end up becoming more resistant to this approach than they would be otherwise. So, and which is not to say that there's not value for the customer, but one of the important things here is just to make sure that it's very well known to the customer what the value is for them. Another big goal behind this is essentially that this gives more opportunities to engage with the customer. For instance, as they're diving in and using mobile applications or creating accounts on the website, it gives you more opportunities to begin working with them in future ways. For instance, by having a mobile application, it becomes significantly easier for users to log in and to connect with you. It gives you more opportunities to provide to them the types of experiences that they're looking for, and a lot of this stems first into just creating that identity for the user. The other thing that goes along with that very closely is personalization. And part of the goal behind personalization is that essentially once the users begin to log in, and we can start to identify them and understand more of the ways that they like to do business, we can really understand how to tailor the experience to be more of what they are looking for. For instance, when you engage with a company that you do business with, you may be looking for something completely different than I am in terms of an experience. And as we start to instead of treating all of all customers as if they're an anonymous person out there, instead if we start to treat them as if they are an individual, this becomes much easier for us and allows us to provide much more of the type of experience that they need and that they happen to want. One of the third major goals behind the whole customer identity experience is security for users. And one important factor here, and I share this as I guess as partly as a cautionary tale, but also just to increase a little bit of awareness here. In one recent study, it was found that up to 93% of those surveyed would at least consider legal action against a company that they do business with that caused their information to become compromised. And this has been happening more and more frequently, as I'm sure you're aware. And it's something that I guess I'd say the patience of the average user is starting to become much shorter on these days. So essentially, getting a process in place in order to secure user data is becoming more important than ever. Users want to be able to see security factors in place, and they want to be able to feel as though their security is important to the companies that they do business with. One of the goals for a number of our clients when we've engaged with them around customer identity has been identifying where all of their customer data is. Frankly speaking, there's a number of companies that don't understand where their data is at and how it's being used exactly. They feel as though they have a pretty good idea, but oftentimes it's just been a long time since someone sat down and really looked through it all and figured out how it all was fit together. So definitely something that's been a focus for a number of our clients has been just unraveling the thread around that a little bit. One experience in terms of how users are beginning to expect a certain level of security from the companies that they do business with. Just want to dive into one quick story here, and that's with a company called Blizzard. Blizzard Entertainment, they're a well-known video game company. They created World of Warcraft, which I expect most of you have heard of. If you have heard of Blizzard, you probably have heard of World of Warcraft. One of the challenges they ran into was they were having a lot of accounts compromised. And by that, I mean a user would log in to the game and they would find out that all of their in-game items have now disappeared. And essentially what had happened was somebody would compromise their account. They would end up getting their username and password via some method. Then they would log in and steal all of their things and sell them off to somebody else to try to make real money on the process. And this created a problem for Blizzard because it was creating, well, first of all, it was creating user turnover. They were finding that a lot of users were taking this experience and using this as an indication that they should stop playing World of Warcraft for a while. And so Blizzard took an approach from there. They wanted to prevent that from happening, and their approach was that you could open up a help desk ticket, and the help desk would help you to restore all of your items to where they were before the breach occurred. And this was creating a solution, but it was also creating some new problems for them. For instance, it was helping their customer retention quite a bit, but it was also creating challenges around a large amount of fatigue on their help desk as they tried to respond to all these tickets, and it just took a lot of time for them to go through and address it. So what they ended up doing was implementing what they call the Blizzard Authenticator. Essentially, this is just a mobile app that provides multi-factor authentication. So instead of just a username and password, which somebody could inadvertently pick up, or for instance, a lot of these were compromised via malware on computers. Instead, you now had to also have the mobile app for it, similar to a one-time password app and so on. So this allowed Blizzard to cut down on the number of tickets they had substantially, and ultimately save them quite a bit of money in the process. It allowed them to increase customer satisfaction, and one of the initial concerns here was that users weren't going to want to do multi-factor authentication. They were going to shy away from this process. And keeping in mind too, this was almost 10 years ago that this occurred. The idea actually ended up becoming widely adopted and widely appreciated. And this is actually a fairly highly rated app in the App Store now. I think this app has a 4.5 rating. So it just goes to show that users are interested in security, and it is something that they are taking seriously, and it's something they're expecting more and more from the companies that they want to work with. Along with those same ideas, we're starting to see more and more multi-factor offerings within mobile apps starting to materialize. I know I've spoken with recently. I've been approached by around a half dozen different vendors that have developed multi-factor authentication platforms that integrate with mobile apps. The idea being that you can take your existing mobile application, you can implement their libraries, implement their feature set into it, and then you're able to quickly get access to some of the new functionality they've built. Things like being able to identify users based on behaviors and elevate risk associated to it. For instance, whether it's things as unusual as the pattern you use to type in your password, where you happen to be located, how your phone is being used, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different heuristics they can use now in order to identify whether or not our user is authentic or not. So definitely something we're seeing maturing much more over the last couple of years. Something we expect we're going to continue to see be built out more. Wanted to dive into some of the challenges that we frequently see with our clients. What types of issues they frequently run into, and how to avoid these things. Because frankly, a lot of this here is just having awareness in terms of what's happening here. Kind of leads us into the first one I wanted to discuss, and that's not to underestimate the level of effort that needs to go into planning for these types of things. We realistically estimate that generally half of the effort around managing customer identity is going to go directly into planning how that effort is going to be managed. Frankly speaking, there's just a lot that needs to be done in order to make the experience right. And ensuring that you're putting enough time and effort into planning what that process looks like is a pretty big first step. So make sure that you're putting enough time and energy into planning things, so that you don't end up in a situation where things are either rushed or poorly executed. Definitely been one of the challenges that we've seen with some folks is if your goal is to have something set by the end of Q2, then I would say opening a conversation beginning of Q1 may even be too late. For some smaller organizations, that probably won't be a challenge. For larger, more complex organizations, it very well could be. So definitely something to keep in mind there, that we need to invest a significant amount into planning out how it's all going to fit together. Another important factor is that, like a lot of other identity efforts, it's really a whole team effort. This really isn't something that needs to be a security-only initiative. This isn't something that's going to be just directly from marketing. This should not be an initiative that is that's even from business development. This really needs to be an effort that all components of the business, everyone, is invested in, and actively engaging in. This has been a challenge that we've seen for some folks in terms of just getting the right cadence here. So getting all of the various folks involved immediately is pretty important to make sure that everybody is having the right experience. Another thing that we've seen is to remember that there's a different experience for mobile users than for users using a traditional computer or web browser. In a lot of cases, it's just a matter of we're making the UI a little bit different, but in other cases, there's more to it than that. Users want to feel as though they are having the same experience on mobile platforms as they are on desktop platforms, but or rather I should say, that's what users ask for, but in reality, it usually needs to be a slightly different experience, even if it's just a matter of moving around some of the UI elements to make it just a little bit easier for mobile users. So definitely something to keep in mind there. There needs to be a concerted effort on both fronts. Another factor is entity accounts. So essentially, the idea behind entity accounts is that these are accounts that are not actually associated to a person. In some cases, you end up with many-to-one relationships. In some, for instance, if you are looking at user accounts and we're associating a mobile device to those users, well, that user may have 4 different mobile devices. They might have their phone and their tablet, and then a second phone, and maybe a smartwatch, and all of these various interfaces are now associated to this user. This also feeds in closely to the Internet of Things proposition as well. And if you happen to be a business that is factoring in these things, then that's definitely something to keep in mind there as well, that you need to factor in how those are going to be managed. Another thing on these same lines too is data privacy. This has become a pretty hot button item in a lot of regions of the world recently, especially with GDPR kicking off and so on. It seems like we don't have to wait real long in the news to hear about some new fine coming for Facebook or Google or what have you around data privacy. And so definitely something to keep in mind when you're going through and planning around how your customer identity programs can be managed. You need to factor in things like how is GDPR going to be affected? How is the new California Privacy Act going to be affecting your business here? Need to look at things like do you have a process around how to handle right to be forgotten, and so on and so forth. So definitely a pretty big factor for managing what the overall processes are going to be moving forward. Another question that frequently comes up is where does the data reside? So this comes a lot back to the whole planning process, making sure that we know where all of our data is at and how it's being handled. One of the questions that frequently come up, for instance, I mentioned some of our technology partners, has been how we can leverage some of the other technologies out there in order to protect some of this. One of the biggest approaches that we've seen in order to address this has been, I mentioned Okta previously, has been using them to get some of the data moved around to other locations so that it becomes simpler to manage. By that I mean, for instance, we can house a significant portion of the user profile offsite. We can host a significant amount of that in different systems that reduce the amount of management and the level of data exposure that the organization has, in order to continue to comply with some of the various requirements that are associated to that. So definitely a number of factors here to consider in a lot of cases as well. It comes down to how much of it do you want to build yourself versus how much of it would we rather license from somebody else. So an important consideration there, and there's kind of a long discussion to be had about that. But so I won't bog down this discussion too much with all the minutiae associated to that. But also something to keep in mind there too is just making sure that you know exactly where all the data is at along part of the process. So with that said, I wanted to dive into how to actually make this work. We've talked a lot about these are some of the problems, but also why it's important. So now I want to dive into specifically what it takes to build this whole thing out. And, to really give you the details here, these are the 5 components that we've seen as the most important considerations and the things to really ensure are in place as part of this particular process, so that we can make sure that the whole experience is built and put together. So first one is pretty simple, the one portal or single sign-on experience. So instead of, again, going back to my internet service provider, instead of having to have 6 different sites I'm logging into in order to get access to all the various offerings they have, instead I should have one that I log into. Another good example of how this process works in the real world is Amazon Web Services. If you ever use AWS, you'll know they have probably 200 different tools and platforms they can offer me in order to use with them. I don't even know, probably more than about 10% of them, or rather I haven't used probably more than 10% of them. But the nice thing though is that since they're all in one place, I know very quickly where I can go to find them and to begin using them. Another factor to this is the automated management idea. So the goal behind this is that initially there are several different ways that user accounts can be created during a customer identity process. In some cases, you have open registration where users can just log in and anybody can create an account and begin doing business with you. There's other instances where, for instance, you have a manual process where only users that begin doing business with you via an offline method should be signed up. These tend to be more business-to-business connections and so on. So something to keep in mind here as well, though, is that the processes here need to be something that are quick. Going back to the whole customer experience and expectations around convenience, if I as a user go to a website and I want to purchase something and I sign up for an account and I'm told that I'll have access to my account within 48 hours, well, that's probably going to kill their opportunities to do business with me. As a consumer, I'm likely to just go and buy my products from somebody else who is willing to respond to this more quickly. So creating a fully automated process so that users can immediately get access to the things that they need is a pretty important component of this too. And along with that, customer self-service. So when users have problems, let's say for instance they have forgotten their passwords, or they've gotten a new phone, so their MFA is out of commission and so on. The ability to resolve those issues themselves is something that we're seeing more and more people wanting to focus on. So providing a process whereby you can do that is becoming increasingly important. We're finding that most organizations out there really don't want to provide a call center for users to call into, frankly, because there's just a lot of overhead to managing a call center, whereas it's much more conducive to their business models if they can have users log into a web portal and quickly be able to reset their own passwords and so on via that method. The mobile experience I touched on before is becoming increasingly important. I recall recently reading a statistic that said that 85% of users have done business with the companies that they work with via their mobile devices. And I remember in one case that also said that 35% of them had done business exclusively with them through mobile devices. So ensuring that the mobile experience is considered is definitely something that's important here. And then the last one is strong authentication. Again, users are beginning to become more reliant on these things and more understanding of what security really is and what it's offering to them. They're willing to begin making some of these concessions around sacrificing a little bit of convenience in order to have a more secure experience because they're seeing the value that's provided to them. And as a company, as a business, or as a partner for them, it's becoming more important as well to show them that it's something that's important to you too. Now, that said, I wanted to get into some of the planning that we frequently conduct around these customer identity initiatives as well. The most important steps that we tend to step through are these four right here. We start out usually by identifying what our user data looks like and how it's currently being handled. So by this I mean, for instance, what type of data do we currently need on users? Do we need their home address? Do we need their telephone number? Or is it just a matter of we have an email address and we have a password, and that's all that we need to manage on this user? Getting an idea of what's really required by the various applications that are in use is a pretty crucial first step, and figuring out where that data is and how it gets managed is also important. The second step to this is figuring out everything that we are connecting with, and sometimes we switch these two between user data and the integration steps because they can be interchangeable in a lot of respects. The goal here is really just to get a more firm grasp on exactly how we're going to be getting things plugged in. So in the case going back to my internet service provider, they would need to sit down and figure out all the various apps that me as a user need to be able to connect to and get access to. So my online email, my ability to pay bills, to open up customer support tickets, so on and so forth. All these things need to be considered as part of the process for how they're going to be integrated with the overall customer platform at the end. And by the way, just a quick heads up: if anybody has any questions, feel free to get them added into the questions tab there. We should have a little bit of time at the end to answer questions that come up. The third step is the registration process. So again, I touched on this a little bit. There's a whole slurry of different ways that we've worked with clients in order to complete the registration process. Again, public registration is a very popular approach. That way, it makes the whole process easy and doesn't require a lot of support from existing staff. It doesn't create additional workloads and tasks for them. Instead, keeps things reasonably straightforward. But we've also seen other instances where, for instance, especially B2B clients, where the client, you don't necessarily want anyone to be able to sign up for an account, only the companies you actually do business with. And even there, we've seen a number of different approaches. We've had some that have said they wanted to manually get users added. We've had others that said things like, I want to be able to ingest my data from Salesforce and be able to create user accounts from Salesforce based on the contacts I have within Salesforce. So a number of different approaches here, but definitely something that needs to be planned around is how users are going to register and what that process is going to look like. And then the last step is going to be the launch process. So there's obviously a lot of technical components missing in here, but there should be some planning around what the launch process is going to be. Is there going to be a communication that goes off to customers? How are our internal employees going to be trained up around using the new portal? Frequently speaking, those are where your questions are going to go when they do come up, is to your internal employees. They'll be questioned by the customers they interact with around how the new initiative works and so on. So it doesn't always need to be a communication that goes out to notify users. In a lot of cases, a quiet launch is appropriate, but this is definitely one area where, again, it makes sense to sit down and talk to senior management, figure out what the right customer experience is, so that you can get the right level of engagement with clients. The last step we generally recommend strongly here is to look at a method for soliciting feedback post-launch. So whether that takes the form of customer surveys or monitoring questions that are received to help channels from clients. The goal here is that as hard as we may try, there's likely to be ways that the initial launch can be improved and better constructed in order to provide the right customer experience. So creating a way to solicit feedback is a pretty important role in terms of getting that whole process put together correctly. So with that, I will go ahead and wrap up. Again, my name is Ben Dimmick. My phone number and email address are here on the slide. If anybody has any questions or wants to discuss a little bit more actively what a process would look like here, how Tevora can partner with you in order to deliver a solid customer experience, then by all means feel free to reach out if you have other contact